Hello everyone, it's Annie, and today I am here to do my quarter two stats video. So in this video, I will be talking about my reading stats for April, May, and June. So let's get right into it. In April, I read 24 books. May, I read 21, and June, I read 18. So let's do a genre breakdown first. I'm interested to see the amounts of all the genres I read. First, we're going alphabetical order, because I don't know. I read 12 contemporary books, which is surprising because I don't consider contemporary one of my favorite genres. Actually, if you had asked me, I would have said that it's one of my least favorite genres, but actually I think it's hard to categorize some books, so I just end up putting them in contemporary, you know what I mean? So, anyway, I read 12 of those. 12 fantasy, 9 historical, 1 horror, 2 magical realisms, 2 mysteries, 11 nonfiction, 1 poetry book, 2 romances, 9 sci-fi, and 2 thrillers. So I guess, the horror, mystery, thriller genres can all be put together because it's kind of hard to tell with some books, which one they are. And yeah, I'm really happy with these, especially the nonfiction stat, 11 nonfiction books in 3 months. I think that's pretty good. As far as the format goes, again, I read mostly audiobooks. I read 51 audiobooks. And then I read 8 ebooks, which were all NetGalley ARCs. And then I actually read 4 physical books. It's pretty high for me. And then as far as the intended audience, I read 38 adult books, which makes sense, 4 middle grade books, and 21 YA books. Interesting, I read more YA than I would have thought. In terms of the gender identity of the authors, I read 53 women. Makes sense. I did the Women's Prize for Fiction vlog, which meant I read a ton of books by women for that, obviously. And then, yeah, I just naturally gravitate towards books written by women regardless. 9 male authors, and 1 non-binary author, which I believe was Ekweke Emezi. And then, in terms of the author's race, I read 30 Asian authors. Which is solely because of the Asian Readathon, because my goal for May was to read only Asian authors during that whole month, which I mostly did, except towards the end I had some arcs that I needed to read that happened to be by white authors. But I read, I think, 19 books by Asian authors in May, so that's mostly where that comes from. 13 Black authors, 1 Latinx author, and 19 white authors. Pretty good mix. I'm pretty happy with those numbers. So, now that we've gotten those stats out of the way, which I love stats, you guys know this, I want to talk about some of my favorite books. Now, this was difficult for me because I have an uneven number. Well, it is actually an even number, but it's not like a round, nice number. I wish I had 5 or 10, but I have 8, which is kind of an ugly number. But we're gonna go with it because I have tried and failed to decrease the number of books on this list and I just can't. So here we go. Wait, no, I am mistaken. Before I tell you about my favorite books from this quarter, I want to tell you about the readathons and challenges I am doing. So for April, I hosted my first readathon together with Noelle from Noelle 7 Pages, which was Linguathon, which was so much fun. I loved it, and I cannot wait to host another readathon. So, and then, and also in April, I participated in the Thrills and Chills readathon. I didn't really complete a bingo, but it was fun to read some thrillers. And then in May, the Asian readathon by Read with Cindy, and May the Force Read with You, which was so much fun, and I really went hard on this. I read so much in May, and I kind of got burned out, which is why my amount of reading, although still high, for June is less. And then also we have the Queer Lit Readathon for June, Pride Month of course, and I read a lot for that, and the Studio Ghibli Readathon, which is so much fun, and because of that, I got to complete the entire Studio Ghibli, not discography because they're not musicians, whatever that's called for movies, filmography, there you go. I completed the Studio Ghibli filmography by watching The Wind Rises and From Up on Poppy Hill. So I'm very excited about that. And those readathons were so much fun, especially the Star Wars one and the Studio Ghibli one. I loved it. And then I wanted to update you guys on my year-long challenges, the Reading Women Challenge and the Read Harder Challenge by Book Riot. The Reading Women Challenge, I have completed 68% of the prompts, which I am impressed by myself for fitting books that I read into all these prompts. I am impressed. And the Read Harder Challenge, I completed 63%. So pretty even. Farther along than I need to be because I only needed to be 50% through them by this time, so I am very pleased with myself about my progress. Okay, so now let's dive into my favorite books from this quarter. First, I'd like to talk about The Girl with the Louding Voice by Abidare. This is probably... oh, it's so hard to choose. It's one of my favorite books that I've read this entire year so far, not just this quarter. It was absolutely breathtaking, and oh my god, it was so good. So good. I could not believe how much I loved it. It was gorgeous and so heartbreaking all at the same time, about this girl who grew up in rural Nigeria and she was sold by her father into marriage, and basically her journey to get her freedom as a woman and get an education. And just the writing was impeccable. The audiobook also, the narrator was spectacular. Honestly, don't wait any longer. Go read the book if you haven't already, please. And then we have Transcendent Kingdom by Ya Jiasi. This is my second Ya Jiasi book, and I loved it probably even more than the first one, which I didn't think was possible. I read this for the Women's Prize for Fiction vlog that I did, and oh my god, I think this should win, honestly. It was so good, so good. It deals with the battle between science and religion, because the main character, Gifty, is the daughter of Ghanaian immigrants who lives in Alabama, I believe, and she has a lot of turmoil in her family. Her brother died of an overdose, and so she has become a scientist working with lab animals, trying to figure out how addiction works in humans, basically. And that is so interesting in and of itself, but she also has to take care of her old ailing mother, and she kind of has a battle within herself about her Christian beliefs and her scientific beliefs, and her relationship with her mother is beautifully explored. It's also, like, so much was done in such a short page count. Like, I believe it's under 300 pages. It's short, but it really packs a punch. This is one of the most beautiful books I have read in a very long time, and you need to read it. And then we have Andy Weir's new release, Project Hail Mary. Oh, this book was so much fun to read. I loved it so much. I've been thinking about it since I read it, which is a good sign that it's becoming a new favorite of mine, because, oh my god, I loved it so much. I think I liked it better than The Martian, to be honest with you. I absolutely adored it. It is about this astronaut who wakes up from a coma, like an induced coma. He was supposed to be in the coma. And he wakes up and he's alone on this spaceship, you know, light years away from Earth, and he doesn't understand what he's doing there. He doesn't even know who he is at first, so we're kind of with him on that journey, figuring out what he's supposed to be doing. And the story of itself, without giving away spoilers, is a first context story and also a story about saving Earth from an extinction level disaster. And oh my god, I loved it. I love the main character. I love the science in it. Don't be scared, it's so good. And I just loved how creative the story was. Oh, I loved it so much. It was like every time the page turned, something new was like, oh, like it made me so happy and made me like surprised. It was suspenseful and just so good. If you need a new sci-fi book to read, this is it. And then we have a memoir, 2 memoirs actually. Why not? I'll talk about them back to back. The first one is How Dare the Sun Rise, and I am very sorry, but I am not going to be attempting her name. It is on the screen. I don't want to make a mistake. So this memoir was incredibly powerful, and I picked it up on a whim because it was available on Libby, and it looked interesting. The title was very eye-catching, and it became one of my favorite books, obviously. It's so good. It is about a refugee from the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and basically she was in a refugee camp when people who were against her minority tribe, who are persecuted in that country, came and basically murdered almost everyone in the refugee camp. And she survives, and she and her remaining family members moved to America, and she talks about her status as a refugee and how that affected her life and how people perceive her, and also how the trauma of growing up with that horrible, tragedy in her life back in Africa, how that affected her. And it was absolutely breathtaking. It's incredible how strong a woman she is with all of that happened to her. She is still able to write so well and eloquently about it. I don't think I would be strong enough to do that. So I really grew to admire her so much while reading this book. This is a very powerful work, and I highly recommend it. And then the next memoir I'm going to talk about is Inferno by Catherine Cho. This book was so raw and vulnerable. She talks about her experience with postpartum psychosis. After the birth of her first son, she and her husband go on a cross-country trip of America to basically meet all of their family members across the country and show them the new baby. But during the course of this trip, Catherine starts to show signs of psychosis, and she is eventually hospitalized, and it is so amazing how she wrote this. Really, she doesn't shy away from anything. It is just amazing. I really don't have the proper words to describe this book, but if you are at all interested in mental health as a topic, of women in general and women's rights, please read this book. Even if you're just looking for a good memoir and you don't really care what it's about, this book will stick with you, I promise. It is so good. And then I'd like to talk about The Poppy War. I am not going to talk about this for long because everyone knows it already. It is about a peasant girl named Rin who rises up in the ranks of the military of this empire called Nikata, and she is amazing, and I love her. It's a Chinese historical fantasy, and it is amazing. If you want more of my thoughts about it, please go watch my vlog linked up there and in the description down below. I take you through my journey of reading the whole entire trilogy, and it was so amazing. I loved it. This is absolutely one of my new favorite fantasies of all time, and I will read anything R.F. Kuang writes. And then I'd like to talk about Summer of Salt, which is, I would classify it as a magical realism story. It is amazing, and I wish I had written it because I loved it that much. It is sapphic, first of all. Yes, okay, it's so good. That already makes it 10 times better than any other book I've ever read. And then we have a mysterious bird like that. I like birds. And the main character lives on this very small isolated island with her family of witches. Can it get me better? I mean, come on, sapphic witches hunting for mysterious birds? Yes, I loved it. I thought this book was amazing. Once I started it, I could not stop. I finished it so quickly. I loved it. It was amazing, and the little love story is so cute, and I love the main character, and I want to live on that island with them because it just sounds so magical and idyllic, and I loved it. And then the last book, but my most favorite of them all, I am already going to say, we'll see if this is right, but I'm already going to call it, this is going to be my favorite book of the year, hands down. A Memory Called Empire by Arkady Martine. Oh my god, it's so good. I can't talk about it coherently. It's really hard for me, so please bear with me. I could not believe, like, as every time I read more of this book, I felt like Arkady Martine was in my brain thinking about what I want to read. Like, this book felt like if you want to know me, read this book because it has everything that I could possibly want. A space opera with political intrigue, lots of political intrigue, check. Sapphic relationship, check. Interesting, unique alien cultures that are significantly developed, great world building, check. Very interesting, poetry and language. The main race of aliens that this book talks about is the Teixcalan, and the Teixcalanli language is talked about so much, and I love language. I'm a linguist, if you don't know, and I thought that was fascinating. I loved the main character, and I loved the interesting issues that this book takes on, because the main character is an ambassador for a world that is not quite part of the Empire, but they're like on the edges of it. And she is an ambassador for her world, but she is like kind of in love with the Teixcalanli culture. So it's kind of interesting because she's simultaneously afraid of them taking over her world, and also she loves their culture. So it's a very interesting dichotomy about being interested in a colonizing culture. And I thought the nuances in this book were amazing. All the characters were so good. I loved it. Oh my god, I can't get enough of it. I ordered the second in this duology like right after reading it because I can't wait for the whole to come in for my library. So I am so glad that this actually does have a sequel, because if it didn't, I would be very sad because I need more about Teixcalan. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching my Quarter 2 stats videos. This is one of my favorite videos to both make and watch of other booktubers, so I really hope you enjoyed mine. And if you made one, please link it down below because I'd love to watch yours too. So thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please like and subscribe to my channel for more bookish videos, and I'll see you next time. Bye!